Hello from Clio Cloud Conference 2017 in New Orleans, Louisiana. I'm Jason Tashea.
I'm Brian Lynch.
I'm Keith Lee.
And we're on the road with the Legal Talk Network. And we're back. Thank you so much for joining us on the road. It's a pleasure to be here in Louisiana. And today we're talking about Slack. Keith, what is Slack?
Slack is a communications platform that a lot of the sort of the big tech companies have adopted, and it's really spread to a lot of the Fortune 500 at this point. And it's sort of like a mix of old school IRC, internet relay chat, kind of laid over with Twitter. And traditionally, people use it like internally for Teams, but a lot of people have ended up using it as a community tool to build specific communities around whatever topic. Pick anything you want under the sun. And I just so happened to start one for lawyers. And so I run a site called LawyerSlack.com at this point. And it's a community that just keeps growing. It's over 500 lawyers doing around 15 to 20,000 messages a week.
Yeah, I'm one of the members of that community. It's a great place to hang out, get referrals, and then waste a lot of time. I think that we discussed the math behind how many billable hours we can light on fire.
Yeah, it was interesting. You know, we started talking about it, and we figured, all right, there's more than 500, but let's just take 500 because it's a nice round number. And let's say the average person spends like an hour a day there. Well, that's 500 hours a day. That's 2,500 hours a week. 52 weeks in a year, and like we just heard here at the Clio Cloud Conference, the average billable hour is $240 an hour. You do the math, and I think since I've started LawyerSlack, I've destroyed 31,200,000 billable hours since it began.
Well, that's no small accomplishment.
I know. I felt, Clio seems to be all about like, hey, we're going to help you like find time for your practice, and it's like we are the opposite of that. That's not what we're about. We're here to actually take money away from you.
And so, Brian, what keeps you going back to this Slack to burn what would other be profitable hours for you in your practice?
It's actually pretty good networking and development and communicating with other lawyers, and there's like kind of a camaraderie there. So, I mean, there's a helpful component to it that definitely exists, and there's definitely the hey, can we DM and can we work through this problem together? And yeah, this is the better way of approaching this issue. But there's also the fun component, which is what keeps people coming back and keeps people wanting to join. And I mean, you can just keep going down the rabbit hole as far as you want to go, or you can keep it, it's your various practice channels and, learn something new and meet new people.
And so this seems like it's the new community forum. Does that seem right for the profession?
Yeah, I mean, people still, I think lawyers are so attached to like old tech. I mean, listservs are still a thing for lawyers. Like, what the hell? No one uses listservs anymore. No industry still uses listservs except for lawyers because it's a horrible interface. It's a horrible way to do things. But lawyers, because once they attach onto one single thing that works well enough for them, they just never want to change. But I mean, obviously, lots of technologies come. There were forums. We were talking the other day about like PHP, BB forums, and there's a lot of stuff. And now, obviously, there's Facebook, Twitter, social media, Reddit. Reddit. There's the lawyers community on Reddit is a few thousand people, but I think what people like about Slack is it's real time. So it's a virtual water cooler, right? Just like if you would walk up at a water cooler at your office, people are chatting. It's kind of like that, so you can be there and not. But the other thing is that it's private. It's walled off. It's not visible on social media to anyone. I mean, and I vet everyone. No, I make sure they have to send me a link to their bar directory, their firm email address, a picture of their JD. So everyone is a lawyer. It's fully private, and everyone knows that what. It's kind of like Vegas. What happens in LawyerSlack stays in LawyerSlack.
Have you had to boot anyone yet?
No, I've come close, but
what was the situation? Please use names and bar numbers to.
Oh God. Well, there was one person in particular who actually I didn't want to because he's a very funny guy and I like him a lot, and but like I mentioned him actually in my talk today. I was like, he's kind of a habitual line stepper. He was crossing that threshold. And then it just so happened a lawyer had just joined the community, who was somebody that I had been friends with for like years in real life, who is also a fairly high-profile attorney that most people, I think, would know who he is if I said his name. And the guy I was initially talking about blew up at him over something super random. I don't even remember.
I don't even remember the topic. It doesn't, I mean, it's
not
kind
even
of
important.
It's immaterial.
Anyway, I came down on him super hard. I was like, look, man, I like you and I want you to be able to stay, but if this happens again, you're done. And he changed. He mollified his behavior immediately, and that's been the only, I mean, the fact that I've been able to herd cats of 500 lawyers and them actually be collegial over this long of a period of time and this busy is, I'm surprised, honestly.
Yeah, it's kind of cocktail party rules. Like, what would get you kicked out of a cocktail party? Just don't do that, you know?
And so at this online cocktail party, Brian, what is something that you've been able to learn or figure out that has helped your practice that you weren't able to find answers to somewhere else?
It's kind of a difficult question because you can, I mean, there's resources out there, and if you're a resourceful person, like, you will find the answers to your questions somewhere. Like, the internet's a big place. It's really just the speed with which you can get a helpful human answer from somebody else. So it's not necessarily even that I'm learning something new, it's that I'm learning something more quickly, which I think is extremely important, especially when you're often on a deadline or you have like a court date coming up or, you know, whatever. So I think it's just kind of that human connection and being able to say like, oh, we're friends, we can talk to each other about this and we can approach this problem together to figure it out, whatever it might be. So, I mean, it's kind of limitless to what you can approach. What actually a really good example was I had a question about slap statutes in federal courts. And that's kind of weird because it's usually state specific. And, you know, a seasoned veteran attorney could help me out and walk me through, like, these are the steps to do this in Southern District of California, which is where I practice. So, I mean, that kind of experience is, like, super cool. And it's, like, in a very friendly way. It's like it's like having the best law professor, like, walk you through it, you know? Like, it's your friend who's, like, not afraid to, like, you know, they're not going to pull punches with you. They're going to give you a straight answer. So that's what I really appreciate.
It's funny. It was actually this morning. I saw it, and I wanted to say, but like, James, you remember James? Who's in there?
Not vaguely.
Anyway, an attorney, because there's so many, I mean, you can't keep track. But one guy in the IP channel, just specifically, same thing. He was like, this morning at 10 o'clock, he was like, I can't remember specifically who helped me out a couple months ago with the trademark cancellation question, but I want to say thanks. My client was able to officially cancel yesterday due to abandonment, and like, you know, he's just a guy who happened to be in IP, and he was like, I have this question, and people jumped in immediately. We're like, oh yeah, you do X, Y, Z, and this is how you handle it, done. And there's just, like, I think the speed is a big part of it. Yeah, he could have probably done the research and figured it out, but there are enough people with enough practice experience of such a wide range that if they're there and someone asks a question and they have the time, they'll answer, and you'll get an answer immediately.
So how do people join?
I usually keep the doors closed because it's honestly overwhelming at this point. When I open them, like, dozens and dozens, it's starting to be like over 100 people try to join at one time when I open the doors. When I did the AMA earlier, and then because I'm here at the Clio conference, it's open right now. So if people go to just LawyerSlack.com, it's open. You can go in, name, email. I have to have proof of your JD. I'll vet you. Sometimes it can take a week or two because I actually do vet everyone. Like, I take the time to make sure everyone is actually a lawyer. But then that's limited. I'll probably, once the conference is over, I'll probably shut the doors again. So.
All right. So depending on when this gets published, people may or may not be able to sign up for LawyerSlack, but keep your eyes out for it. So before we close today, I have one last question for you. How can people keep in contact with you? How can they follow up with you? Even if LawyerSlack is closed, what's the best way to get in touch?
For me, I'd probably say Twitter. I'm at Associates Mind. It's me, or if you just search for me, Keith Lee. I mean, you should find Keith Lee Lawyer, or if you just go Google Keith Lee Lawyer, enter, I'm the entire front page, so that helps.
My email address is probably the best to keep in touch with me, but I can't help you join LawyerSlack. It's Brian, Brian, at lynchllp.com. I run a little IP practice with my brothers. I also moderate Reddit. You can reach out to me there. I'm Orange Julius. If you ever want to do and ask me anything, I'd be happy to help you out.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, thank you guys very much. We've reached the end of the road for today's episode. I want to thank our guests for joining us, and we also want to thank our listeners for tuning in. If you like what you heard today, please rate us in Apple Podcasts. We'll see you next time for another episode on the road with Legal Talk Network.
Good job. If you'd like more information about what you've heard today, please visit LegalTalkNetwork.com. Subscribe via iTunes and RSS. Find us on Twitter and Facebook, or download our free Legal Talk Network app in Google Play and iTunes. The views expressed by the participants of this program are their own and do not represent the views of, nor are they endorsed by, Legal Talk Network, its officers, directors, employees, agents, representatives, shareholders, and subsidiaries. None of the content should be considered legal advice. As always, consult a lawyer.